Hi, I'm Rob Cosman. Welcome to my shop. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add solid wood edge banding to our Cosman Workbench. Ever since we released the video on how to build this, we've had numerous folks ask about it. Today, I'm going to walk you through how I would do it. I'm Rob Cosman, and welcome to my shop. We make it our job to help take your woodworking to the next level. If you're new and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Hit the notification bell so you'll receive alerts when we release a new video. And anytime we use a special tool, we'll always leave a description down below. All right, let's get to work. So if we tackle this in terms of what are we going to do, we want to cover all four edges, the two long ones, the two short ones. We need some kind of a corner joint. It could be as simple as a butt joint. It could be a little more complicated and be a flat miter that you could then add a spline to for strength. I think what I'm going to do is dovetail it. As I mentioned, I think it's a great way to show off your joinery skills or your newly developing joinery skills. I chose torrefied maple. Now you could use anything you want. Torrefied maple, what I like about it is the fact that it's very stable. So it essentially doesn't move because it doesn't absorb moisture. So I'm not going to deal with any problems of this stuff not moving and the band moving. This stuff should stay put. Okay, there's some dimensions we need to deal with. First of all, the thickness of the band. I'm going to suggest somewhere around 3/4 of an inch. You could go less, you could go a little bit more, but I'm going to work with 3/4. So that's easy. Thickness, well, the top itself actually comes out at just over 3 inches. So I want to after putting this on, you can never expect to get it perfectly flush with the top. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider, and then we'll carefully plane it down to match the top and the bottom. Now you'll notice that we've got a radius here. We're going to address that in a moment. So we know our width, and I think we kept these. These are actually 3 and 1/8. I'm going to cut them down a little bit more. So let's. I'm going to eliminate. I'm going to leave the length off for a minute, but for width and thickness, we're going to stay 3/4 on both. Now, if you like to make your dovetails look like this, if you look on this bench, I've got thin tails, wide pins, and it elongates the tail, and some people actually like that. I do too, but in this case, I'm going to keep both pieces the same thickness. So the sides and the ends are both going to be 3/4. That's the thickness. The width, we're going to go 3 1/16. That's going to allow us a little bit to plane it flush. Now the length. I'm going to work with the assumption that you've already built the bench and you're going to want to come in and dress it up after the fact. And if you've already put a radius on here, well, we've got to do something about that because a radius shows as a gap when you glue something on it. So we have to at least come back to where we're past the radius. I don't want the bench to be a lot wider than it was originally. I've already got this piece cut, and I can easily do that on the table saw. So I'm going to work as if I'm going to go ahead and make the outside. So this piece on the end, I'm going to keep to 20 inches. So we'll make that dimension right there, 20 inches. Now, the other one's going to be a little bit more complicated. And by the way, I'm going to actually build the frame, and then I'm going to cut this to fit inside the frame instead of trying to do it the other way around. Hopefully my logic will make sense. So what we're going to have to do when we cut the two sides down, the two long sides down, is just not take too much off of one side. Over here, I'm 1 1/8 away from the dog hole. So I might take a little less off of this side. Now, actually, I can't do that because if I want to keep this centered and use the same holes underneath, then I've got to take the same amount off. I'm not terribly worried about that because the only thing that's used for is my lamp, so it doesn't matter. And once I glue back on an additional 3/4 of an inch of material, really there's no concern at all, actually on either side, even with the dog holes. So we'll go ahead, once we've cut this to 20 inches and actually assembled it, we'll take the inside dimension and using the table saw, we'll rip this down till we've taken off the same amount on both sides and it fits in there. But on the length, a couple of considerations. Don't really want to change this, so I need to come back 3/4. I've got to take 3/4 off of here. And down on this end, I could actually use a little bit of extra length. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get rid of that radius. So instead of removing 3/4 here, I'm going to take the opportunity to make this bench a little bit longer. I've got my pieces roughed out at 60 5/8, so really I can only get about a half. So I'm going to go 60 1/2 on the length. And I'm not going to do anything to this until I've actually got these pieces, the joinery cut and partially assembled, and I then will make this fit into that opening. Okay, so these 4 pieces are down to thickness, down to width, and down to length. Now, if you've never used a shooting board, you can check the link down below where I discuss how to use it accurately and properly. What we want is to have these ends perfectly square, so when we put all this together, everything lines up. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get set up to cut the dovetails, and when I do, I'm going to make it so that when it goes together, this is perfectly flush. That's just going to require a little bit of cleanup. But we'll discuss a little bit of that, and I'll walk you through the first corner. But if you need help with your dovetails, we've done several videos. We'll leave a couple links below that will go through and give you some tips on that. So the first thing you may be wondering, or if you haven't, you'll figure it out real soon, is how are we going to cut dovetails in the end of such a long board? So let me mark this, and then we'll go through and do it. Support this. So our saw is cutting on the push stroke, which means it's going to want to go that way. This is going to vibrate a little bit in the backside too, but I just happened to notice that this other piece was just about the right length to lock it against the bench dog at the back. We could have easily clamped something on there too if that didn't line up. Now I'm going to put a piece underneath here using one of the pin boards. Now if we put a clamp from here to here, that's almost. Yeah, that's pretty stiff. We'll lay that out and try it. Now I've got to be able to get up higher, so I've got to find something to stand on. And then since I offset to my left, I go to the right side of each tail and just reach down there with my dovetail marking knife. And that'll leave a saw kerf in the adjoining piece. Or I should say I have to use this polyurethane glue on this torrefied wood. Regular wood glue doesn't work. And I really don't like it because it's so messy. So I'll put a piece of paper towel there to keep it off the bench. Now I numbered all of these, or lettered them. And I'm going to put 3 pieces together with glue. After that's dry, we'll add on the 4th one dry, cut the bench top to fit, and then come back and glue it. Okay, I've stripped the bench top, took it off the base, took the vise off, and the glue's dry on the two corners of the frame. I've already cleaned those up. And if we measure from the inside to the bottom of this socket, we've got 18 5/8. This measures 19 7/8, so we've got to remove 1 1/4 inches, which is 5/8 off each side. So I'm going to make my first pass. First pass will be 19 1/4. What I want to do is use this as a reference to get it just right, so I don't have to cut this twice. What did I say I need to take it down to?
5/8.
Huh?
18 5/8.
18 5/8. That's right on. I was careful to avoid those little globs of glue. Okay, let me explain what I got here. This is my sled, and it's too short since I'm cutting on the right side of the blade. So this piece of 3/4 MDF will make up for the difference in the height. I took another piece of MDF, clamped on a piece on the back side of it to stiffen it up, and I clamped this to my fence that's on my sled. And it's fairly stiff. What I'm going to do, lower the blade just because this is going to be awkward to get into place. Now I know I know my length because it's going to be from inside shoulder to inside shoulder. But down here where the vise is, I don't want to change this dimension. So I'm going to take 3/4 inch off of here, which is the end piece that we've already dovetailed. So I know I'm going to take 3/4 off here, and then I got just leaves me about 1/8 inch down on this end. But I'll worry about that second cut in a minute. I think I'll go ahead and take this off right now. Now I'm purposely going to stay away from here. I want to leave extra material that I have to take off with the flush trim bit. That way I'll get a nice clean surface to join to. Okay, so the little bit of a lip that's left right there, and I didn't do it on purpose, but I accidentally undercut with the saw. The good news is that's where the vise sits, so that will be underneath the vise and hidden. So I'm using a flush trim bit, and that'll clean that up and make short work of it. There's a little bit left right there. I'll take a block plane to that. I want this to be precise. Okay. So we're just taking off that radius. Okay, so we just want to eliminate the pencil line. Okay, so it looks like the blade is just taking off the line. So I'll tighten this up. I think I might actually put a second one on there just to help hold it. Now I think what I'll do is I'll flush up the bottom side beforehand and then leave the top side just a little bit proud, and then we'll plane that to be flush with the top. I just want to see how this fits. That's good. That's very good. That's nice and tight. I couldn't ask for any better. Pull that in. So I think I'll glue these three edges, and we're going to use the Gorilla Glue as well on this, or the polyurethane, because of this torrified. And then once the glue is set, the last thing we'll do is add this outside piece on, which should be quite easy. But it'll also allow us to go in, glue this on, flush it up, and then just apply that final piece. We just flush up this bottom side. One less thing to do after. Okay, now it suggests a little bit of water on the opposite piece. So I'll just go in. Oh, that's a bit much. I'll wipe it down. The nice thing about this torrified wood, it does not absorb moisture like regular wood does. Okay. Now, I want to get this, don't want to push it all to the bottom. Hopefully we didn't. Now, since that will pull it, that centers itself because of the two ends, I think we can go ahead and put this on first. That actually holds the call. I decided to add the caul because
Make sure there's enough room for your pipe.
the glue expands. Actually, maybe I should put it up high so they can go underneath. The glue expands and I didn't want it pushing out. Okay, that'll do. All right, we'll give that enough time to dry and we can put our last piece on. Okay, now I just went and trimmed down the glue so that my plane wouldn't rest on that. Now I want to go in and clean this up before we put that last piece on. Try to figure the grain direction on this stuff. I want to be particularly careful because I don't want to cut into the MDF. But if you do, you can always apply some cyanacrylate to it and that'll stiffen it up again. Here. Now the downside to this torfide, it weakens the wood, so whereas sometimes I can get away with planing across the end of the board and that won't tear off. This stuff will, so I'll have to plane in from either end. Okay, now we'll put this.
Right.
Okay, so I cut a 1/8 inch radius all the way around, but this is where the vise goes. I want that to be a square edge. I'm just going to take just a little bit off so it's not sharp to the touch. And then the last thing before we put the vise back on, in the areas that I accidentally touch with the plane, now this may end up getting on the, you can't oil this stuff, it just won't absorb, but we'll see what happens when I put this on, if it'll wipe off or not. So if you just saturate the area with cyanacrylate and then just wipe off any residue or any excess, it'll stiffen that up. Here's the final bench with the, what's it called? What are we calling it?
Edgebanding or Cosman Workbench?
Edgebanding.
Ready to go.
So here's the final product with the edge banding made out of torrified maple. Now you could have done any kind of corner. You could have done a butt joint. You could have done a miter. I chose to do the dovetail. It took a little extra time, but dresses it up a little bit. Actually, I'm quite impressed with the way this turned out. I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I do. But it's a great way to give a little extra strength to those soft edges of the MDF. And if you take care of it, it'll last a long time. I put another coat of finish on there, so that should be good for another couple of years. Anyway, hope this helps. If you enjoy my method of work and like my style of teaching, click on any one of these videos to help take your woodworking to the next level. Now, I've always said, better tools make the job so much easier. If you click on the icon with the plane and the chisel, it'll take you to our website, introduce you to all of our tools that we actually manufacture right here, as well as our workshops, both in person and online. Good luck.